So as we begin, I actually want to start with an admission. Little confession to make. Last week, I got something wrong. And so whenever I get something wrong, I just want to be transparent and honest about that. And so if you were here, you heard me say that one of my kids came to me and there was a stat that blew my mind that like 60% of the world's population still thinks the world is flat. And I said, that's probably going to get proven wrong. Somebody's going to correct me later. And lo and behold, after the service, 2 people came up to tell me. One came up and said that they actually knew someone who thought the world was flat, which I just thought was amazing and awesome. But the second one was, in fact, that same son who came up and said, Dad, not even close. It's like less than 10%. So, it was close. It was, 10%, less than, and 60%. It was close. So, as I've said before, I don't math and I don't do statistics. But I'm so grateful to him because he is a voice of truth in my life. And he's such a gift. He corrects my mistakes. And then his other calling is to let me know every week if my sermon was too long. So, children are really God's instrument of humility. That's been my experience. When Carrie and I got married, we just thought we had it all figured out. We did. We just thought we got this down. In fact, people had warned me when we got married. They were like, I had so many people. This just tells you a little bit about maybe my reputation and who I was. But they were like, when you get married, you're going to learn what a selfish jerk you really are. Like they were telling me that. They didn't tell Carrie that. That just shows you, like different messaging, okay? And they're telling me, they're like, bro, you're going to learn. You are so selfish. Right now you're just living for yourself and you can do whatever you want and go out whenever you want and eat wherever you want and all the choices are yours. But then you're going to get married and your life is going to be all intermingled and you're going to discover you're so selfish. I got to be honest. I didn't learn that lesson at all. I got married and what I learned is that I had married way, way up. That's what I learned. She made it easy, right? It still does. We were just so in love. It was probably kind of gross. It was one of those, you're just so, puppy dog eyes and everything's wonderful. And we just couldn't wait to be with each other and do things for each other. And so I think back to those early years of being married and it's like, I just wanted to make her happy and she just wanted to make me happy. And so we're always, well, what do you want to do? No, what do you want to do? And even like chores around the house, it was like a competition to see, oh no, I'll get it done before she does, and vice versa. And so we'd be finishing up dinner and it was like, I'll do the dishes. No, you've had a long day. I'll do the dishes. Oh, no. You've had a long day, longer than mine. I'll do the dishes. I'll vacuum. No, I got this. I'll vacuum, right? Some of you are like, that's nasty. Yeah, I know. But then we had kids. And then I learned what a selfish jerk I really was. Because suddenly with kids, the whole paradigm changes. All the math changes. And I remember in the first few weeks, and our oldest was premature, had to wake him up every 2 hours to eat, which means we didn't sleep. And so for weeks, we're just like sleep deprived, walking around like zombies. I'm working full time and going to school. She's trying to deal with a new baby. We have no idea what we're trying to do or how to keep this kid alive. And in the midst of that, like suddenly all those good intentions, they just fall by the wayside. And I remember vividly, sitting at the table and in our apartment. I got a little table and we're eating and I don't even know how food ended up on the table. Like I think maybe somebody gave us a meal, and so we're sitting there and we get done eating and instead of like, oh, let me do the dishes, we both just kind of sit there looking at each other. It was like a scene from a Western, Woo, it's like, who's gonna make the first move? Draw, So I'm looking at her, I'm looking at the dishes. I'm looking at her, and I'm looking at the dishes. And I'm looking at her, thinking, man, I'm not moving. I hope she moves first. Because I'm not going to move. I'm not going to break. I can play this game all night. How long does it take? I'm not getting up. I'm not going to be the one to serve her. You ever been in one of those situations where there's clearly something that needed to be done? There was a problem, there's an issue, something that needed to be accomplished, and maybe you're even a group of people, and everybody's just holding their breath, waiting to see who breaks first. You ever been in one of those group projects, maybe at work or maybe in school, right? And you're in high school and they make you do those group projects, and everybody's sitting around going, not me. Like, I don't want to do that. Everybody's looking at each other, hoping somebody else will give in. Somebody else will do what needs to be done so that they don't have to be the one to serve. Right now, we're in a series talking about how we can bless our neighbors, how we can be the kind of church and the kind of people that we don't just talk about love, but we actually put love into action. Because we don't want to be the kind of church that just exists for the sake of existing. We don't want to be the kind of church that talks a good game but doesn't live it out. And so as we have experienced God's love, if we've experienced his overflowing mercy and grace in our life, that then flows through us to others, that we would be a conduit of God's blessing and grace and love to the people around us, that we would be a blessing to our neighbors. And so each week we've been talking about these 5 practices that are found in this book, B.L.E.S.S, by Dave Ferguson and John Ferguson. And these are 5 everyday ways to love your neighbor and change the world. And we're talking through these, and then on our small groups, we're really trying to get into the nitty-gritty, like, let's try to live this out. And we're asking everyone just to consider, like, who is it that you're going to pray for? Who are you listening to? Who are you going to eat with in order to be a blessing to them in their lives? And so whether or not you're in a small group or maybe you're just going through this book on your own, man, my prayer is that God would just be pressing on you and just opening up your eyes to people around you that you can bless. And that it would move from just an idea to reality. And so over the past few weeks, we've covered the first 3 letters. B.L.E. Begin with prayer, listen, and eat together. And so this week, we want to look at the first S, to serve. Because it's probably not a real shock that one of the most significant ways that you can bless someone is to serve them. That when no one else is, maybe no one else feels inclined, that we would take the opportunity to lift a finger, to offer a helping hand to somebody who needs a little assistance, someone who could use a little help, rather than when it would be easier just to stay in our lane and take care of our own business. See, one of the most, I think, uncomfortable things about Jesus is that Jesus rarely stayed in his lane. Like, Jesus never just said, I'll take care of my business and you take care of your business. Like, we'll just kind of like do it that way. Like, Jesus was constantly acting and behaving in ways that revealed just how small selfishness really is. And he was constantly calling the people around him to greater and fuller lives, because the greatest life, greatness, is not measured in how much service you receive, not how many people wait on your beck and call, but how you serve others. One of the most vivid examples of this in Jesus' own life is found in John 13. When Jesus, he washes his disciples' feet. And in John 13, verse 1, John, he sets up the scene for us. He wants us to understand what is happening in that moment. And so he describes it so beautifully. He says, it was just before the Passover feast. And Jesus knew that the time had come for him to leave this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he now showed them, get this, the full extent of his love. He's about to demonstrate it. The evening meal was being served, and the devil had already prompted Judas Iscariot, son of Simon, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. Now, what John doesn't spell out for us, because this was John's world, like he just expects us to understand this, is that foot washing was a nasty business, all right? It was pretty gross. And so it was not something that even a regular house servant would do. It was something that only the lowliest, the very bottom rung servant would ever be expected to do. Because keep in mind, in that day, in that part of the world, in that culture, walking around town looked a little different than it looks today. There weren't clean sidewalks, paved roads, and people didn't have closed shoes with socks, right? So you're walking around mostly dirt streets with open-toed sandals, bare feet, and in those streets, by the way, are where all the animals go, and they do their business wherever. And there are no street cleaners. And so as you're walking around town, getting wherever you're trying to go, you're basically walking through a nasty combination of dirt, mud, dust, and animal business. And it is everywhere, and it's sticking to your sandals as it's getting on your feet. And so when you go into someone's home, like for them to show proper respect to you, there would be someone there to wash your feet. And so when the disciples, when they walk in here, they're ready for this meal, they expect there to be someone to wash their feet. Because when you ate, you wanted to have clean feet. I know that sounds a little weird to us because we go in, our shoes might be dirty, and we go into a restaurant and we slide into a table and our legs are under the table and our feet are on the ground, but that's not what it looked like. See, for them to eat at the table is on the ground. And then you would lounge on one side, you kind of lean like this, and you're grabbing food like this, and your body and your legs are stretched out there where someone else is laying down. And someone else is laying down. And so your feet are coming dangerously close to someone else's body, maybe even somebody else's head, not to mention the smell. So if you want that meal not to seem kind of nauseating, right? You want somebody there to wash your feet. It's a nasty business. And so they're there waiting, expecting somebody to begin to wash their feet. Here we are. The meal is ready. Where's the guy? Right? Where's that guy who's going to come and wash our feet? And see, here's where it starts to get really awkward because you can just imagine they're sitting there, all the disciples, and they're doing that moment where they're all looking at each other going, who's going to break? Like, who's going to do this? Like, I don't want to do this. This is nasty. It's not my job. It wouldn't even be proper. Like, this isn't my place in society. There's other people, they do this. I don't do this. Man, I hope one of these other guys does this because I don't want to do it. Not my problem. Where is that guy to wash everybody's feet? And it's in that moment that Jesus gets up. And he takes off his cloak, and he puts on a towel, and he kneels down, and he begins to wash their feet, their nasty, stinking feet. And if you thought it was awkward before, now it's really awkward. Before, they're just wondering who among them is going to begin to wash each other's feet. But this is Jesus. Like, he's the one guy who shouldn't be getting up of any of them. Right? That's not how this works. They should be washing his feet, not the other way around. And so they're like, what is happening? He came to Simon Peter, verse 6. And Peter said to him, I love Peter, Lord, are you going to wash my feet? This is Peter's role in life, is to verbalize what everybody else is thinking and doesn't want to say. Like, he is that guy. Everybody else is like, what's happening right now? But they're not going to say anything. Peter's like, Lord, are you going to wash my feet? Like, Jesus, what are you thinking? This is really uncomfortable, I got to tell you. This is not how society works. This is not appropriate. Like, I should be washing your feet, not the other way around. This is not how the rules go of society. So I don't know if any of you are aware of this. Last month, a new movie came out of the Downton Abbey series, right? So any Downton Abbey fans, you can admit it. We're friends and we're family here. There's no judgment. If you are a Downton Abbey fan, no one, fair enough. I am a Downton Abbey fan. I will just admit this right now. I know that it had peaked a long time ago, so this feels really dated that they're releasing another film. But here we are, right? Just one more, cash grab, I'm sure. I'll probably watch it anyway with Carrie because Carrie is the one who conned me into Downton Abbey to begin with. And she did. She's good at this. It was one of those, I'll watch this and then you pick something. We'll watch what you want to watch, and then we'll watch what I want to watch. And of course, we never, ever watch what I want to watch. And now we're still watching Downton Abbey. But then it's great. It's such a good show. It's fascinating. I mean, the whole premise, so you have this wealthy aristocratic family in like early 1900s Britain, and they have this ginormous estate and ginormous mansion, and this wealthy lords and ladies, they don't do anything for themselves. Like, that's not their class. They're high class. And then they've got dozens upon dozens of servants who live in the mansion with them who do everything, cooks and maids and cleaners and groundskeepers and ladies' maids and manservants and all the rest of it, and just the interplay of this fascinating world that we do not understand, of all the upstairs world versus the downstairs world, and how they work together and coexist. And it's fascinating because, again, it's not our world. Like, I don't understand any of that. Like, we don't live in a world where we have servants, most of us. I'm just going to presume most of us here do not have live-in servants, regardless of how my children feel, right? They sometimes they accuse us, but servants never had it so good, I promise, right? Anybody here with a manservant? Ladies' maid, anybody? See, clearly we don't have any billionaires in here, all right? This is not our world. We don't have those kinds of servants, and we're not those kinds of servants. Not the Downton Abbey kind of servant. And see, Jesus' world, understand, had more in common with that Downton Abbey world than ours. They lived in that hierarchical society where you've got masters and servants and among other classes of people, and you didn't move amongst classes. You didn't intermingle among classes, and masters would never do a servant's work. And the servants would never have the audacity to expect them to. The servants know where their place is at the bottom of the social order. That's just how it was. And so Peter, he's incredulous. Like, he can't fathom what Jesus is doing. This is unheard of. It messes up everything. Jesus, are you going to wash my feet? Jesus replied, you do not realize now what I'm doing, but later you will understand. See, what Jesus was going to do is he's going to wash their feet, and then as we'll see, he's going to explain why. He's going to explain the lesson that he wants to get them to get out of this moment where he, as their teacher, is washing their feet. But of course, Peter, he doesn't stop. Right? Peter's going to keep talking. He just keeps going. No, said Peter, you shall never wash my feet. Jesus answered, unless I wash you, you have no part with me. Then, Lord, Simon Peter replied, not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well. Peter's the kid who doesn't know when to stop talking, right? He just won't let it go. See, the other guys are all sitting around going, okay, we're just going to keep quiet here. Jesus does this. He's got a lesson. He's going to teach us. It's going to come afterwards. We're just going to wait and see how this plays out. And Peter's like, wait. Hold on. You're going to wash my feet? Like, you can't wash my feet. Jesus says, unless I wash you, you have no part with me. I'm just trying to explain this to you, Peter. And Peter's like, whoa. Well, in that case, wash all of me. He just won't let it go. Just wait. Jesus is like, if I could just finish, I'd explain. But Jesus, he's going to try again. Peter, a person who has had a bath needs only to wash his feet. His whole body is clean, and you are clean, though not every one of you. Now, in the Old Testament scriptures, when it describes a person's relationship with God, it often uses this language of clean and unclean. And it has to do with the reality, the inward reality of a person's heart. That our hearts at the very deepest level is contaminated by sin. Like, there's this contamination of sin that infects and infests our souls, our hearts. And so in the Old Testament language, it was trying to describe the inward reality that needed cleansing. And so there were religious washings, ceremonial cleanings that were symbolic of this inward reality that a person's heart needed to be washed clean of sin in order to have right standing before God. But it was pointing to this reality that kind of cleaning isn't something that we could do on our own. And so when Peter says, don't wash my feet, and Jesus says, I have to wash you, or you'll have no part with me. Like, I got to do it, Peter. I have to wash you. What he's saying is, Peter, you have to accept what only I can do for you. You have to accept that you have a sin problem. It's not just the things that you do. It's deeper than that. It goes much deeper into your heart. And so you can't touch that, Peter. I'm the one who has to heal you. I'm the one who has to clean you. And then Peter, he gets so excited. He's like, well, then wash all of me, Lord, right? Because Peter, he's just all in. That's just the kind of guy he is, 100% all in. But before the meal, probably, there had actually been a ceremonial washing. They probably had essentially a bath before they came in. And so they're clean except for their feet. And so Jesus, in one sense, he's being really practical here. He's like, Peter, you took the bath. I don't need to wash all of you. I just need to wash your feet. But there's also a spiritual meaning. And so he says, you are clean, though not every one of you. And then John, in verse 11, he's going to explain. He says, for Jesus knew who was going to betray him, and that was why he said not everyone was clean. See, Judas was the exception because he wasn't a true disciple. He wasn't a true follower. The others had committed their lives to Jesus. They would make mistakes, but they would follow him. They would mess up, but they would follow him. But Jesus, he's the betrayer. He is the plant. He's the mole put there by the enemy. And see, what's incredible in this moment is that Jesus knew that about Judas. He wasn't surprised. He knew what Jesus would do. See, normally when someone betrays you, you don't know that it's happening until you feel the knife in your back. And see, this is the unique pain of betrayal. If you've ever experienced betrayal, there is a unique hurt because it is someone you trust. It's not just the pain of what they've done. It's that this was someone that you thought you knew. This was someone you thought was with you, someone you thought was on your side. And so the pain of betrayal is actually twofold. There's what they did, the harm that they caused you, but also the violation, the betrayal of that trust, of that loyalty. That's why betrayal runs so deeply. It hurts and scars us so deeply because of that unique relationship with the person who put the knife between our shoulder blades. See, Jesus, he knew that was coming, and he washes his feet anyway. See, this is what is so radical about Jesus. I mean, just imagine for a moment that you're Jesus, and he's on his knees before this man who he hand-selected to be one of his closest followers and friends, and he's on his knees washing his feet. Like, this is what's so radical about Jesus' love, is that his love doesn't depend on the people he loves. They could stop loving him and he'd still love them. So you might be here this morning and you're not sure how you feel about God. You might be here this morning and you're not sure what you believe. You might be thinking you're ready to walk away from God. You're ready to give up on God. You're not sure whether you believe in him at all. I want you to know that you will give up on God long before he gives up on you. You will stop loving God long before he ever stops loving you. You will stop believing in God long before he stops believing in you, because Jesus is that friend who does not fail. He is that friend who does not give up, who is always there. He knew who Judas was. He knew he would betray him, and he loved him, and he washed his feet anyway. When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. Do you understand what I have done for you? He asked them. Do you understand? You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. I tell you the truth, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that last part right there, that part the disciples get. That no servant is greater than their master. They're like, oh yeah, that fits. We understand that. It's everything Jesus did and said before that they're trying to wrap their heads around. Because that's not how things should work. The masters don't serve the servants, teachers don't serve disciples. That's all backwards. But this is what Jesus constantly did. He took the accepted social dynamics and he turned them upside down. He turned them upside down in order to show a more beautiful picture of what the world could be that they could never imagine before. I was at this event one time, and they had a number of artists displaying artwork and a lot of different styles of art and different methods of art. And there was this one artist who, I don't know if you've seen anyone do this particular feat before, is that he had this very, very large canvas that was hung on a wall, and he was taking paints, and it felt almost haphazard. It felt almost like just chaotic, and he's just sort of like throwing paints up on this canvas, and you're watching it. It was moving so quickly, and you just couldn't really make anything out of it. It was kind of a Jackson Pollock sort of looking thing, and then all at once, abruptly, he stopped, and he stepped back. We're sort of looking at it, wondering, what is this? Maybe that's what it's supposed to be. And then he stepped forward again, and he turned it upside down. And suddenly, there was Marilyn Monroe. See, this is what Jesus does in his world and in ours. Is that he takes what we feel like is normal, what feels like right side up to us, and then he takes it and he's like throwing things at it, and it feels chaotic and upsetting and uncomfortable, and we can't make heads or tails out of it. And then he turns it right side up, and he shows us the world as it was meant to be. He shows us a more beautiful version of what the world could be if we only could see it the way he does, if we only followed him and lived like him. See, the key to the whole picture, though, this is really important, that when you take the world and you turn it upside down, what Jesus is not doing, he's not simply swapping the upstairs for the downstairs. He's not just saying, switch places. He's not just saying to the masters, now you're the servants and they're the masters, and everything stays the same. The dynamics have stayed exactly as they were, but you've just swapped places. He's not just saying, if you've got power, we're going to take your power away, give it to the powerless, and now the powerless, they get the power, but you're the powerless, right? He's not just swapping places. See, this is what social redistribution tries to do. It's when it says, we're going to take this place, take it away from you, give it to somebody else, and now you're where they were. Right? We're going to take your power, give it to them, now they're powerful, you're powerless. We're going to take your wealth, give it to them, now they're rich and you're poor. That's not what Jesus is doing. Jesus is doing something far more profound. He's trying to challenge our very understanding fundamentally about what power is and what it's for. The real power that exists. That power is not intended simply to be self-serving. It is actually to be other-serving. That the real beauty and nature of power is discovered and found when it's used to elevate others. And so Jesus, what he is saying here is, I'm not trying to tell you, hey, stop being powerful. He's saying, no, take your power and use it for somebody else. I'm not telling you, I'm going to take away all of your money and give it to somebody else. He said, no, you use your power. You use your wealth. You use your talents. You use your time, but you give them away, not because someone forces you to, but because you choose to. See, that's real power, because that's real love. That's real compassion. That's real caring. Jesus says this is what it looks like to actually exhibit true power. It's when you lower yourself, not because someone makes you, but you say, in my power, I'm going to leverage all that I have in order to elevate somebody else. I will kneel to wash your feet. Not because I'm made to, but because I choose to. And see, this is seen, if you go back to verse 3. He says, Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power. Do you see that? He's put all things under his power, that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. See, that juxtaposition of those two verses, that God had given him all the power. All things are under his power, so he knelt down and washed their feet. Like, that juxtaposition should blow our minds. See, I don't know about you, but if I found out, if I discovered, if I was aware that I was the most powerful being in the entire universe, can I tell you, my first move probably isn't to wash anybody's feet. I'm not like, whoa, look at me, I got all this power. Can I wash your feet? Like fly? Yes. Leap tall buildings in a single bound? Absolutely, I'm on it. I'm there, right? Maybe demand fealty and worship and tribute? Probably. But not Jesus. Jesus, knowing that all power had been given to him, knowing that he is God himself, clothed in the flesh, he kneels down, he rolls up his sleeves and says, I'm going to wash your feet. Do you understand what I've done for you? That's the question. Do you understand what I've done for you? Verse 13, you call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. It says, this is the lesson. This is the lesson. And then skip down to verse 17. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them. I've had the opportunity to fly first class just a couple of times in my life. I couldn't afford it. I didn't deserve it. I didn't pay for it. Somebody upgraded me just because they felt like being nice to me, you know. But I admit, it's amazing. I mean, it's great. I mean, you haven't even sat down, and they're offering you way better than half a soda and a bag of pretzels, right? I mean, they're just waiting on you, hand and foot. I mean, what could be better than this? People just waiting on you, beck and call. And it'd be really easy to think that this is the high life. But see, that's just luxury. That's not life. Because life isn't about how much you can get and how much other people can do for you. It's about how much you can give. See, I love the question that Jesus asks, do you understand what I've done for you? Like, I am Jesus. I am the very Son of God. I am God in the flesh. I am your rabbi. I am your teacher. I am your Lord. And I got on my knees. I washed my feet to show you the kind of kindness that can change the world. To show you that real power isn't measured by the quality of the service that you receive or all the things that you don't have to do because they're beneath you, but by the good that you can do in someone else's life. See, real power doesn't put on airs. Real power puts on an apron. Real power doesn't demand tribute and fealty and worship. Real power gets on its knees and washes their feet. Not because it has to, but because it chooses to. Years ago, I was in this airport. I think I was like a senior in high school, so a long time ago, ancient history. And sitting in an airport and waiting for a flight, and the counter is right here, and the gate is right here, and I'm sitting in some seats, and there's some seats across from me, and some guys are sitting there, and there's this one young lady on the end, and I noticed that she had this case that you would carry like architectural plans or engineering schematics, something like that. You know, it was kind of like a tube. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And so she was sitting there, and after a little while we're waiting, you know, and she gets up and she leaves and she takes everything but that case. And it's just kind of tucked up under her seat. And I noticed, and I thought, oh, she left her case. And I didn't notice in time to like catch her, but I just saw it. And then I was like, man, I hope nobody takes the case, you know, and I thought, should I grab the case? Like, would that be appropriate? You know, would somebody think I'm trying to steal the case? Should I just leave it? Maybe I'll just leave it and I'll just watch and make sure nobody else takes it. And so I was just kind of overanalyzing things as I tend to do. But I'm sitting there and I'm kind of watching this case. And then one of these guys, they're just kind of hanging out. One of them gets up and kind of out of the corner of his eye, he sees the case. And so he does what I should have done, which was he grabs the case. And he realizes he's kind of looking around. He sees she's not there. So he goes up to the counter and tells the woman working for the airline, hey, I think this young lady left her case. I don't know if she's coming back, but I'm just going to give it to you. And so she says, thanks so much, and she takes it. After a little while, she comes back, and she's looking for a case. You can see she's kind of like looking around, and the lady with the airline, she sees her, and she walks over with the case and says, oh, are you looking for your case? Oh, yeah, thank you so much. Oh, it's no problem. Somebody turned it in, and they saw that you left it. And at that moment, and I have no idea why, she looks over at me with her case, and she says, thank you. And the lady with the airline goes, oh, no, he didn't do anything. It was this gentleman over here. He's the one who actually made sure that nobody stole your case. Thank you. Can I tell you, I have never forgotten that moment. And I don't know if I was ever more ashamed in my life. Because it would have taken so little. All I had to do was get up. All I had to do was get out of my seat and pick up the case and turn it in. But I sat there. And I determined then that to the best of my ability, I would never stay seated again. That I was never going to feel that kind of shame. That nobody else was going to beat me out of the seat to serve, to help somebody out, to lift a hand. That if I see somebody who needs a little assistance, like I want to be that person. I want to be the first one there. I want to beat everybody else out. Because what I'm absolutely convinced of is that the greatest contribution in my life isn't how I can serve myself, it's how I can serve other people, and that the measure of my life will be determined not by the quality of service that I have received, but what I have done to serve others. See, church, can you just imagine for a moment, like wouldn't it be great if right now we could just determine together that each one of us individually and then corporately, like we would be a church that would not stay seated, but we would get up. That we wouldn't be the last person out of our seat. We wouldn't be the last ones up from the table. Like that when we see somebody, there are small acts of kindness all around us all the time. Like, I don't want us to wait and for somebody else to move. Like, let's grab that. Like, that's for us. Like, those are opportunities. Those are blessings waiting that God is offering to us. Like, I don't want somebody to beat us out of that. I want us to be known as the church that moves. That if people knew every single person in here, they'd be like, man, they're just out there. Like they see a need, they're looking for the opportunity to meet it. I see a need, I want to meet it. I'm not leaving it to somebody else. I see somebody who needs to be served, I'm going to serve. To the extent that I am able, to the extent that God allows me to, I want to serve because that is the greatest measure of your life. That is the greatest contribution that you are going to make. Let's not sit back passively and wait for somebody else to do it. I was at a baseball game yesterday. And one of these things that coaches yell at players, especially young players, is you got to want the ball. Because young players, they'll just like let ground balls go, you know? Or one of my favorites, right, is when there's a pop fly and they're all in the infield and there's like 3 of them rally, you know, and they're all watching the ball. And they're like dancing around it as it's coming down and watching it. And nobody wants the ball. And then it lands. And a run scores and somebody's safe on first. And the coach is yelling, somebody call the ball, right? Every dad in here knows what I'm talking about. You've all felt that pain. You know, you're watching it. Somebody call the ball. Let's call it, right? You see somebody who needs to be served, like just call it. Like you got to want it. You got to want the ball. Look for the opportunities. Imagine the avalanche of kindness that would be unleashed, that could pour out on our neighborhoods, on our friends, coworkers, people we go to school with, people we go to work with. Like if we just looked for the opportunities, didn't make excuses, didn't wait to see if somebody else would step up, but as God gives us opportunities, we see it in front of us and we're looking, we go, man, nobody's getting to that ball before me. Call the ball. Go and serve. Imagine if we could be that kind of people that would show others around us the extent of God's love through everyday acts of kindness, to show them what Jesus really looks like. The one who said, I'm going to serve. And he got on his knees and he washed their feet. Can I tell you, there's a reason that the scriptures tell us that at the end of days, every knee will bow before Jesus. And it's because no one ever knelt lower than him. No one. Jesus, being the very Son of God, he took all of his rights, all of his power, everything that he deserved, and he laid it down. He emptied himself in order to become one of us, to become human, to become flesh, in order to become not just like a celebrity, not a king, no, a servant of all, to the point of dying for us, to the point of going to the cross, allowing nails to be driven through his hands and his feet. Like that is service. Like it doesn't get any lower than that. It's because of that God raised him from the dead, and he now sits at the Father so that every tongue will confess that he is Lord of Lords and the King of Kings, and every knee will bow because no one ever demonstrated service like Jesus. And he gave his life for us. And see, he didn't do that out of weakness. That was power. It wasn't weakness. The greatest demonstration of power that the world, that the universe has ever seen. It's not political, it's not economic, it's love. Jesus conquered sin and death. He conquered the world. Not by strength of arms, not through a military, not through a great campaign, but with love. Just bow with me. We'll pray. Father, just reminded that you've loved us beyond comprehension, that you would give us Jesus, that Jesus, you would come and you would give your life for us to save us from sin and death, but also to call us into the type of lives that we were made to live. Lives of compassion, of generosity, lives of service, that this is where real life is discovered, the lives that we are meant for. And man, there is a whole world around us. There is everything screaming at us that life is about what we can take, what we can gain for ourselves, how we can be served. But that real life that you show us, real power, is when we lay our lives down in order to serve the people around us. God, there are everyday acts of kindness, just waiting, little treasures, just waiting for us to discover. Give us eyes to see. And then give us the will, the courage, the humility to say, I'm going to stop. I'm not going to make excuses. I'm going to go and I'm going to serve in a small way and allow you to work, to see what you do through that act, through that moment. God, help us to look just a little bit more like you this week. We are all works in progress. None of us have arrived. We're not expecting perfection. Lord, we just want 1 degree more to look like you, to be a little more loving, a little kinder to the people around us. Help us to look like you this week. And that would be enough. It's in your name we pray.